Every year, Western families throw away up to $1,500 in edible food, while Japanese kitchens transform peels, bones, and rice scraps into dishes packed with hidden nutrients and flavor. The secret? A centuries-old philosophy called Mottainai, and 20 kitchen tricks most of the world has never seen. But how did this practical wisdom emerge, and what are we missing when we toss our leftovers? The answers begin with a single, handwritten ledger, and a tradition older than modern waste itself. Centuries before modern recycling, Japanese kitchens were shaped by a sense of reverence for every object and ingredient. The word mottainai carries more than regret over waste. It is a quiet respect for the life and effort behind even the smallest scrap. In Buddhist thought, wasting food is a loss not just of calories, but of spiritual value. Shinto beliefs go further, teaching that tools, bowls, and even vegetable peels may hold a spirit of their own. Folklore warns that neglected objects like old graters or worn-out knives can become tsukumogami, mischievous spirits born from disregard. During the Edo period, when resources were scarce and cities swelled with new mouths to feed, households learned to stretch every grain and leaf. Broken umbrellas became brooms, worn kimono were patched into boro textiles, and kitchen scraps found their way into stews or pickles. In these routines, waste was not just frowned upon, it was seen as a moral failure. Rice, the heart of every meal, was precious enough that leaving a single grain in the bowl was considered disrespectful. This deep-rooted thrift survived war, famine, and the economic booms that followed. Even as supermarkets and convenience stores spread through post-war Japan, grandmothers kept handwritten diaries of recipes that used every part of the day's market haul. Carrot tops became furikake for rice, daikon peels simmered into broths, and leftover fish bones were transformed into calcium-rich soups. These were not just survival tactics, they were lessons, quietly passed from one generation to the next, teaching that abundance is created not by having more, but by wasting nothing. Mottainai is more than a word or a trend. It is a way of seeing the world, where every scrap has potential, and every meal is a chance to honor what once seemed ordinary. In Japanese kitchens, the smallest peel or stem is not the end of an ingredient story, but the beginning of something new. On a quiet morning, the kitchen table becomes a living archive. Wrinkled hands, steady from years of habit, open a cloth-bound notebook stained by time and use. Inside, the pages are crowded with looping script, faded ink, and the occasional grease mark, a ledger of meals, memories, and scraps reborn. These notebooks, kept by grandmothers across post-war Japan, are more than recipe collections. Each entry records not only what was cooked, but how nothing was wasted. Daikon leaves pressed into rice balls for school lunches. Yesterday's miso soup thickened with leftover tofu skins. The careful transformation of fish heads into broth. Some ledgers date back to the late 1940s when rice was rationed and every carrot top counted. In the margins, there are notes on stretching a single chicken over 3 meals, or reminders to save onion skins for the next batch of stock. These are not museum pieces, but working tools, consulted daily, passed to daughters and grandchildren, updated with new tricks learned from neighbors or seasonal changes. Ledgers live in use. The act of writing, of recording each scrap's second life, is itself a lesson. Children learn to read their grandmother's handwriting before they can cook, tracing the shape of a kanji for burdock root or miso. Over time, the ledger becomes a family's private map of survival and celebration, a testimony to resourcefulness shaped by necessity, but carried forward by pride. In these pages, Mottainai is not a slogan or a trend. It is a living practice, measured in pencil lines and kitchen stains, guiding each meal from market to table to tomorrow's lunchbox. The authority of these ledgers is not in their age, but in their use. They are proof that abundance can be created, one saved scrap at a time. A single potato, carrot, or daikon radish holds more than meets the eye. In Japanese kitchens, the peels, stems, and tops, parts destined for the bin in many homes, are the real stars of the show. A quick scrape with a Yusuba knife sends onion skins tumbling onto a tray. These papery layers loaded with quercetin and antioxidants are baked at high heat until they blacken. Then they are blitzed into a powder so vivid it rivals any store-bought spice. That powder, rich in flavor and nutrients, finds its way into soups, is sprinkled over rice, or is folded into tempura batter for a smoky edge. Next come the carrot tops and daikon leaves. Instead of wilting in the compost, they are chopped fine and tossed with sesame seeds, soy sauce, and a dash of sugar. The result is furikake, a rice topping that delivers a punch of iron and vitamin K. Broccoli stems, often overlooked, are peeled and sliced into thin matchsticks. A quick pickle in rice vinegar and salt transforms them into a crunchy salad, goma-ai, that keeps their chlorophyll and antioxidants intact. Even potato skins, after a brief blanch and a night drying near the stove, crisp up in the oven. Blended to a fine dust, they become a potassium-rich seasoning, perfect for finishing roasted vegetables or stirring into miso soup. Lab tests confirm what grandmothers knew by taste. Up to 80% of a vegetable's fiber and vitamins can hide in the parts most people discard. In a year, a family that saves and uses these peels and stems can avoid losing hundreds of dollars in nutrients. Each technique, from blackened onion powder to sesame carrot top furikake, is quick enough for a weeknight and dramatic enough to change how dinner looks and tastes. For each handful rescued from the trash, the kitchen becomes a place of quiet transformation, color, crunch, and nutrition, all coaxed from what once seemed worthless. Rice stands at the center of Japanese life, but its story does not end with the last bite of dinner. In kitchens from Sapporo to Okinawa, day-old rice finds new purpose long after it cools in the pot. Cold grains left from yesterday's meal become the backbone of fried rice, savory pancakes, or pressed into onigiri for tomorrow's lunch. Each transformation saves what would otherwise be lost, reviving up to 30% of household rice that might go uneaten. Even the cloudy water left from rinsing rice, called togijiru, is put to work. Instead of pouring it down the drain, cooks use this starchy liquid to blanch greens, soak root vegetables, or wash mushrooms. The gentle starch acts as a natural cleanser and softener, brightening color and preserving nutrients that often fade in plain water. In some homes, togijiru is added to soups or used as a base for simmered dishes, lending a subtle sweetness and body that clear water cannot match. Storage tricks extend the life of both rice and vegetables. Wrapping leafy greens or root vegetables in a sheet of damp newspaper, then sealing them in a loose bag, doubles their shelf life in the refrigerator. This simple method, passed quietly from one cook to another, keeps produce crisp for days longer than plastic alone. The same principle applies to rice. Cooled quickly and wrapped tightly, leftover portions can be frozen and revived with a splash of hot water or a quick steam, losing none of their original texture. Grain by grain, these habits add up. A family that reuses rice, rinse water, and stores vegetables this way can save hundreds of dollars each year while keeping nutrients intact. Where some see only leftovers or cloudy liquid, Japanese kitchens see a chain of possibilities, each step honoring the value of what is already in hand. The plant toolkit is now complete, and the stage is set for the next ingredient, proteins with their own secrets for wasting nothing. In the heart of Tokyo, Chef Suzuki stands over a battered pot that has simmered more seaweed and bones than most kitchens see in a year. His method starts with a sheet of kombu, thick and briny, pulled from Hokkaido waters. After its first gentle steep in hot water, the kombu is set aside, not discarded. Even after yielding its initial umami to the dashi, lab tests show that nearly 90% of its iodine and most of its minerals remain. Suzuki slices the softened kelp into ribbons, then simmers it again with soy and mirin, transforming it into tsukudani, a glossy condiment served over rice. Any leftover kombu is minced once more, tossed with sesame and dried into furikake, a savory sprinkle that carries the ocean's depth to every grain. Nothing is wasted. Bonito flakes too get a second life. After infusing their smoky essence into the dashi, they are pressed and rehydrated with soy sauce into okaka, a topping for rice or vegetables. In Suzuki's kitchen, even fish bones are never just refuse. Simmered for hours, they release calcium. 1 cup of this broth delivers almost 1/3 of the daily requirement, along with a subtle sweetness that anchors soups and stews. Each cycle through the pot extracts new layers of flavor and nutrition, echoing centuries of kitchen wisdom. The kombu, once destined for the compost, becomes a mineral-rich backbone of the meal. The fish bones, often overlooked, quietly fortify the body as well as the broth. Suzuki's practice is not just thrift, it is respect distilled into every spoonful. In Chef Suzuki's kitchen, nothing from the animal goes to waste. Chicken skins, often trimmed and thrown away in Western kitchens, are laid flat and salted, then slowly rendered in a heavy pan. As the fat melts out, the skins shrink and crisp, turning golden and glassy. The hot fat, now rich and aromatic, is poured off and saved for stir-frying vegetables or seasoning rice, replacing bottled oils with something deeper and more complex. The skins themselves are pressed between 2 trays and roasted until they shatter at a touch. Crunchy snacks known as torikawa, rivaling any store-bought chip. Each batch transforms what most see as scraps into a double dividend, flavorful fat and a protein-rich garnish. Next, Suzuki turns to the sea. Prawn heads, left over from preparing sashimi, are split open to reveal a pocket of orange roe. In most homes, this would be rinsed down the sink. Instead, the roe is scooped out, spread thin on a sheet, and dried gently with low heat. Once crisp, it is crumbled into a powder, intensely savory, almost briny, that gets sprinkled over noodles, eggs, or even popcorn. The shells themselves, after their roe is harvested, are roasted and ground into a fine dust to add depth to broths or sauces. Each step salvages nutrition and flavor that would otherwise be lost, turning the remains of a meal into the highlight of the next. These techniques do more than stretch a grocery budget. They unlock layers of taste and texture that store-bought products cannot match. In Suzuki's hands, what began as kitchen refuse becomes the secret to unforgettable meals, proof that abundance is a matter of perspective and patience. Every year, the average household throws away as much as $1,500 worth of edible food, often without realizing it. The problem runs deeper than leftovers or forgotten produce at home. At the retail level, strict rules drive waste before groceries even reach the kitchen. In Japan, the 1/3 rule dictates that food must reach store shelves within the first third of its shelf life. Anything past that window is pulled, regardless of quality. This system, paired with cosmetic standards that reject vegetables for being the wrong shape or size, means that 20 to 30% of produce is discarded before a single customer sees it. Standing behind his stall in Tsukiji, a veteran vegetable vendor gestures to crates of perfectly good cucumbers and carrots, set aside not for spoilage, but for failing to meet appearance guidelines. He explains that buyers from big chains inspect every shipment and send back anything with blemishes or curves. He says it is not about taste or nutrition, just looks. These rejections add up, pushing costs higher for everyone down the line. Households absorb the impact. When stores pass on the cost of wasted stock, grocery bills rise. Meanwhile, families unknowingly toss nutrient-rich scraps, peels, stems, and bones that could have stretched meals further. The economic loss is not just in the trash bin, but in missed opportunities. Nutrients lost, money spent, meals cut short. The system, from farm to checkout lane, is built to favor uniformity and speed over thrift. As a result, abundance is measured by what gets thrown away rather than what can be saved. The next step is to see what happens when a family tries to break this cycle, tracking every scrap for a week to reveal just how much is slipping through their fingers. Sana stands in her own kitchen, ledger open and scale at the ready. For 1 week, she tracks every peel, bone, and leftover, determined to see how far Japanese kitchen tricks can stretch a modern grocery haul. Each morning begins with a quick inventory. Carrot tops saved for furikake, potato skins blanched and left to dry, daikon peels tucked into a jar for tomorrow's pickles. By midweek, her compost bin, usually brimming with scraps, sits nearly empty. The freezer, on the other hand, fills with neatly labeled packets, golden fish bone broth, crispy chicken skin snacks, and jars of onion powder, bright as saffron. Receipts and notes pile up beside the stove. Sana's grocery bill, compared to her average week, drops by nearly 15%. Meals take on new color and depth: rice topped with prawn roe powder, stir-fried greens made from last night's stems, soups thickened with the starchy water from rinsed rice. Even snacks get an upgrade, with roasted potato skin crisps replacing store-bought chips. Each dish is a quiet celebration of what might have been wasted, and a lesson in flavor. By the end of the experiment, Sana tallies the results: a full 10 to 20% savings on groceries, and a week's worth of meals richer in both flavor and nutrition. The numbers confirm what Mottainai has promised for generations. Abundance is not about buying more, but about seeing potential in what is already there. As Sana closes her ledger, the kitchen feels lighter, proof that transformation begins with a single saved scrap. Every year, billions of pounds of edible food are thrown away, while grocery bills climb and resources dwindle. As cities worldwide pledge to have food waste by 2030, the quiet ingenuity of Japanese kitchens offers a blueprint hiding in plain sight. What we discard today decides tomorrow's abundance or scarcity. The smallest habit shift can rewrite the story of waste. What will you choose to keep?